Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Walter Schulz, the on-set VFX supervisor of Showtime's The Curse. Walter, the show is created by Benny Safdie and Nathan Fielder, and it's unlike anything I've really seen before. I'm curious how they approached you because at first when I'm watching, I'm like, okay, this isn't like a VFX extravaganza, but then it just goes crazy off the walls by the end. So did they lead in with that, or did you get the script first and think, okay, like what am I really gonna do here?
Well, first of all, I didn't get the script right off the bat, but what I did know from the rumors was that two other supervisors turned it down, and I was very curious why. And then I found out exactly why, because they were going to have buildings with walls made of mirrors, and reflections are the worst enemy of any visual effects approach or any visual effects supervisor. So that was right there a challenge, and I love challenges. So the other thing was not entirely exactly no virtual stages. It was pretty much a very traditional approach to visual effects, but with a very good view of how we were going to accomplish, the the finish and the entire thing come together. A lot of these things do take time, and a lot of those things we figure out right on the set, just discussing on how we were going to do it. But in my on my end, with my extensive experience, I've worked with major directors in the past, as you well know, and having been on set with some big productions, I felt really confident. One of the things I know is that in one of these shows like these, sometimes some of your least utilized skill sets come into place. In this case, physics. So the very first day when I came in, I said, "You guys, you have these walls that are 90 degrees. So where do we put the crew so they're not reflecting? How do we do this? What is our safe zone? What can we do?" Because it was really a situation they didn't know how to approach it. So it was just really simply said on those walls, just project those vertical planes, and that 90-degree area that you have, you are completely safe anywhere in those 90 degrees. And I pointed out where those were in the all those areas. You can move around, you can place cameras as long as you are in that other 90 degrees, nothing is going to be reflecting. And that really was a big help, unless we had obstacles, bushes, and they can be behind something.
Well, I want to start off with the end of the season, and so spoiler alerts. I mean, anyone who's watching,
Major.
I mean, I can't not talk about this. So if you haven't seen it, come back later and watch this interview. Because the episode Green Queen, I mean, Asher wakes up on the ceiling. So let's just start there and how you worked with production design, because I understand that they had an upside down set and a right side up set. So how do you work with that department and make this all sort of seamlessly appear as though they're in this room together and he's stuck on the ceiling?
It was planning, always planning, and of course, when he had to be sometimes on the actual ceiling, when on the right side upset with wires, and everything was being pulled from above, erased later. And in order to have the proper gravity when they are struggling with the towel and all these things, that we needed to make sure that the gravity was always in that place. And then whenever he was crawling around the ceiling, depending on what areas he was, when he tries to go out the door, we would be on the upside down set. And I had to obviously do all the survey for the upside down and the right side up sets to make sure they were identical, especially the placement of the chairs and all that. I did my own lidar, just with the iPad, some lidar scannings in order for me to compare both of them side by sides once I brought them into the 3D program and make sure that we were all okay. There was a few corrections that I made, but it was pretty well done by production design. Amazing work.
Yeah. So then what sort of equipment do you need to use then when you move outside? And Asher's like holding on for dear life on this tree branch, trying not to get sucked into space. Because I heard there's like some old-fashioned stunt work involved here. And how do you embellish that and make it all look real in the finished episode?
What was very unusual for me here as a visual effects supervisor, obviously I'm on the visuals, right? I'm all the visual effects and all that. Normally, I don't get nearly as involved with the stunts and even production design, but in this particular show, because of what we needed to do, there was a very close collaboration from the stunt coordinator who did an amazing work, and sometimes even coming to me to say, "How do you feel we could do this?" Because they understood I know quite a bit of physics and I've done a lot of these things. Because when you do digital doubles on the computer, we are in the era of simulation. You actually assign that digital double a specific weight, mass, and you assign friction to everything and how much that's going to affect. So these are like NASA level simulations that sometimes we do. You probably know I was a creature developer at ILM as well. So these things are very, very deep and complex. So I would just give my view. And we were, one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we completed everything without any incidents. But Nathan and his double were in various situations as high as 30 feet up in the air and with harnesses and one of the things I did at first, the first week was actually scan the area where he was going to go from the house to the tree and hang on to the tree. So I scanned that and I created a digital browsing 3D model of that whole area so the production could actually plan this, and say, something you could rotate and easily visualize how the stunt was going to be performed.
What does this whole VFX team look like in general as a partnership? Because we hear terms like VFX on set supervisor, but then so much happens behind the scenes and like with computers. So how does that whole team come together and who are you working with?
As an on-set supervisor, you have to have at least 10 years of experience in the actual box, doing different things so you can understand what needs to be done, because otherwise you may not be able to provide the proper materials for the artist to work on this later. You're missing something, you're missing certain information. I obviously my deliveries were on a daily basis, everything that I could provide. For example, if Nathan was jumping from a high altitude into the ground, I always place two GoPro cameras, one on each side as witness cameras to see that. Why? Because when the camera may be here and he looks like he's going in a certain direction, you're not seeing the full picture. You're not able to triangulate that. So providing that information helps everyone know exactly and replicate exactly the trajectory of the subject or whatever stunt we're executing. And then from there it goes to them. So all that material contributes as references for them to do the visual effects. If it's replacing the actor, or we also placed several green screens, temporary green screens or blue screens, depending what we needed to do.
What was the most challenging or most exciting part of this job for you? Like what scene do you look back on and you're like, damn, that was we
It
really
was it was awesome. When we had to do, obviously, when he flies away, because we were no longer on that 30-foot tree up there,
yeah.
and I always have my laser measurement tool to know what distances we're talking about, and I have to be always ahead of production. The exciting time was that when we had to make him, in fact, fall the stunt double actually falling onto the tree branch, but we're gonna reverse that shot looking like he's actually flying up and then barely hang on to that tree branch. That was the most difficult stunt, and to be honest, we got it right on the very first shot.
Wow.
And everybody was like, Benny wanted to do it again, and the first AD suggested that, this is a very difficult stunt and dangerous as well. And it looks like we got it pretty much, round in that first shot. And Benny said, but I would like to try again just in case. And I gave my opinion and I said I would also agree that we got it, but if you want to do it again, we can do it again. It's really a director's call. And one of the things that I wanted to emphasize about The Curse, I'm used to work with major directors. For example, Roland Emmerich, Independence Day, Godzilla, White House Down. He's a mega director, and I worked with him shoulder to shoulder on Midway. I supervised Midway when we had at least 400 people under the same roof at any given time. 300 were, just simply extras. Half of them were sailors, Japanese sailors or American sailors, and it was always that structure. The director was God and everybody below would listen, and no opinions were really other than how to do his vision. The good thing about The Curse, which was a totally new workflow that I've been involved, was Nathan and Benny and Emma, they were all exchanging ideas, and it was such a collaborative experience. All three of them were, I mean, of course, Nathan and Benny were mostly co-directing, but uh, all three of them are producing, and it was such a different, more collaborative experience that things could change on the fly, and it was great as a team how everything worked out.
So ego kind of gets brushed aside, even though Emma,
Absolutely.
I mean, what a great year for her. She just won her first or her second Oscar. So that's good promotion for the show, show
Absolutely.
for you
Mhm.
as well. So what was it like being on set with actors of that caliber? Does that change the mood at all for you in your position?
I do work very close with actors. In fact, on Midway, we were all part of the same group of chairs. We were all sitting together. So you get to interact and mingle with them and you get to know them. But as a visual effects supervisor, I have to be focused on what's going on the set every minute because everything is my responsibility. And if anything goes wrong, I have to respond to the director, the producers, and the studio. So it's a huge pressure that you're always under, and this is why some people shy away from doing that. But working with Emma Stone was different in the sense that I can truly tell you is one of the nicest people I've ever worked with, and I can tell you why specifically. We were working under very harsh conditions, 120 degrees most days in the shade in New Mexico in the middle of summer, super humid, and the temperatures just didn't give way. I had to get up at 4:30 because I had to get drive 40 minutes to the set to the HQ where we had our COVID test, and then wait there until my COVID test was clear. And then after that, I would drive to the set starting around 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. and then work, 14, 17 hours sometimes. And we were one day sitting around because it was a break time, and Emma had a house that was rented particularly for her and the actors to be there. And we had a military type air conditioning pumping air into the window, right? So that house was super cool, super nice. And we were all just sitting around. I was standing next to the door, and she comes in, she comes out of the wagon, and she comes in and walks towards the door. And the moment she's about to enter the door, all that you can feel that really nice cool air and all that. She stopped right there next to me and she looked around, and she saw everybody sitting in the shade on the rocks under the trees and everywhere they could, and she goes, I'm not going in there, and she went and sat down with us.
Wow.
you
So that's
know that shows that shows the person that she is, and everything else was very, very easy to handle, and there was never friction or any kind of argument. And there was a time that I was probably going to be doing a digital double of her as well. Then I decided we didn't really need it because there was nothing in particular that required a digital double of her. So I didn't need to do it. For Nathan, I did do a digital double.
what are some of the, I mean, we all think of that final episode, but what are some of the other episodes throughout the series that like might surprise viewers, or maybe we don't know like how much visual effects is coming into play? Like when you think back on like throughout the series, what are some other little things that you had to tweak and change that would maybe surprise some people?
The birth scene was tricky, and it was hard on everyone because it was not easy to see. I wasn't. particularly there that day, but they showed me the video later, and it was kind of disturbing because I don't know. It's just especially those that have kids, they very sensitive about it. But the other one was the airplane when they are inside the aircraft. That was surprisingly simple set, but looked amazing. It looked really well. Yeah.
And how does working on a show like this differ from like Godzilla versus Kong or Game of Thrones or Spider-Man? I mean, things that are just so in your face. Um, but this has to look so realistic. I mean, we're not talking about dragons here. I mean, this
Right.
is a very realistic situation. So how do you sort of, I don't even know if edit back is the right word, but how do you sort of keep it in that realistic vision?
Yeah. It's always about references, lighting references. I measure everything and I do survey of everything we have from distances to what kind of lights we're using and light angles. So any graph that we can do to help that out, of also building that IBL. The IBL is the image-based lighting. So basically you can build a 3D scene or you can have a 3D subject in that location in the 3D space. But instead of putting lights to try to light the subject, you create a sphere and you map this HDR image of the entire set that you did by taking pictures, panoramic pictures all around. Then you stitch them together. And every pixel is actually emitting a ray of light with the proper lighting. Then when you place that person with the plate in the back, it looks completely integrated.
Wow.
And then there's always tweaking that you can do in compositing as well.
When did you get interested in VFX? Like, was there a movie as a kid that you remember and you were
Oh
like,
yes, it was actually it was I wasn't even a kid. I was already, coming out of a attempted career as a musician in Hollywood. I was in Hollywood a sessionist for 7 years, guitar player. And
okay.
when that industry wasn't working for me, I wanted to find something that was creative, that was Hollywood, but it would give me some kind of a career. But it had to be Hollywood because I was a huge fan of it. And I went to see Jurassic Park, you know, in 1993. Immediately, I said this is perfect because my background is also I've been a pilot. I'm originally from Argentina. I was in the Air Force, and I have an Air Force license from Argentina, and I continue to fly now. So technical, and then the arts, the music, technical and art. How do you mix these things? And when I saw Jurassic Park, I'm like, that's perfect because that's a mix of technology and art. And I found out that Art Center was the only place teaching it in the West Coast. And I was like 5 miles away from there without knowing, right? I lived in Arcadia and they're in Pasadena. So that's when I started. I went to Art Center and I did my first steps into 3D modeling and 3D animation. Once I was there, got into video games for a couple of years and then transitioned into early television. And then when Maya came out, I went back to school to Noman School of Visual Effects, which is considered the MIT of visual effects. It's really the true masters go there because it's in the core of Hollywood. And these people who are supervisors in different studios, they leave the studio and they go to teach there at night. So you can't get any more insights of how the craft is done.
Is that what led to Pirates of the Caribbean? Because that's one of your first major
Yes.
films,
Yes.
right?
That
That's one
yeah,
of
after 10, 12 years of working in, countless commercials, music videos, and 3D projects, Maya was really what, took me to the next level. And Pirates of the Caribbean, I came through the big door as a lead CG artist, which was amazing for the first trilogy.
wow. I love stories like that. Walter, The Curse is such a cool show. It blew my mind and just took me places I was not expecting it to. And congratulations and
Thank
good luck
you.
to you and the whole cast and crew at this year's Emmys. And thanks for joining Gold Derby today.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.